The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, TechBytes is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
Rob Grimes, and I'm very pleased today to have a conversation with Sindhu Rajan, who is the Vice President of Enterprise Systems and Service Delivery for Hughes Network Systems. And welcome to TechBytes.
Thank you, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we always like to have different conversations with people who have different areas of expertise. And by the way, what you don't know is that you have been slotted as an expert in your area because you're not in the sales department. You're actually in the delivery.
That is correct.
It's great that we can have this conversation today because, you know, Hughes has been a longtime supporter of the IFBTA. And actually, some of the great knowledge and conversations I've had are with different members of the Hughes group because you guys get into so many different things. But today, we're going to talk about you. So perhaps we could just start out with, for those who might not be aware of Hughes and the areas that you're working in, a quick just intro to Hughes and then a little bit about your background and journey.
Of course. As you all know, Hughes is currently a leader in the MNSP space. We provide lots of broadband services as well as network services, security, and digital media across multiple market segments for large enterprise, franchisee, and government. And I'm very lucky to be part of this organization in terms of providing service delivery to all of these customers. And excited to be here today to share some of the best practices that anybody in this space can deploy with their customers.
What is your journey been? I mean, you've been with Hughes, I think, 17, 18 years.
That is correct. So I started off in the information technology department, implementing customer relationships and CRM systems, actually. And as part of that, when I joined back in 2007, I took on the role of managing the enterprise support center. At that point, we started with just a couple of devices, and we've grown into an organization that provides over 800 plus broadband services.
A couple of devices that you actually supported?
Correct.
And they were probably, as I'm going to guess, and by the way, I should add something in. So MSP, Managed Service Provider, right? Not Minneapolis, St. Paul Airport.
And that is correct. It is.
Okay.
It is. Yes, that for sure.
So I'm going to take a guess that when you were managing a couple of devices, that those devices may in fact have been things that Hughes itself was offering.
Yeah. So primarily our ingrown modem, a router that we built, and across multiple customer organizations. But at this from there, we actually grew into providing broadband services. We grew from just 3 or 4 vendors to over 800 plus providers that we work with today to bring network connectivity to all of our customers.
There are 800 broadband providers around?
Big and small, that is correct.
So I guess you would need that because when you think about the hospitality, the retail, the food service industries, they're in some really remote locations and they're in all kinds of different places. Are those 800 providers all within North America, or are those global? Or
North America, and we do have some providers in South America as well as Europe. So it is spread across the world, actually. So.
And we know that companies in this industry are global. Today. And I also find it fascinating, by the way, that a company can go global with like 3 units and they just automatically just go out there. If they've got a great concept, somebody wants them to come.
The connectivity enables a lot of global growth right there.
And there you go. That's exactly the comment that I would have made. And so you made it for me, that connectivity is really what opens up those opportunities for us. But, when you started, I'm betting that the terminology was different. And, terminology over time, obviously changes. But today, we're really talking about, and this is used a lot, the word digital transformation. And that is an area that you're really focused on. But I've learned that people have different definitions, like the definition of AI. I could ask 3 different people and I will get 3 different definitions. So what is your definition of digital transformation, and how do you see that fitting into our businesses?
My principle has always been, it is not just technology, it's people first, process, and then technology. They have to come together to digitally transform an organization. So, for instance, if you take the quick service restaurants, today they've gone from just, somebody walking into the store and walking out with food to, tech savvy drive-throughs, frictionless experience. That is something very, very key. Creating digital menu boards. So it's a marriage of making sure that the employees have a great experience, which creates an even more seamless experience for their
But there's customer connectivity in there as well. And I never know exactly who the end user is, because it's not just the connections a customer has when they come in a unit and maybe they want to connect to the high speed, connect-ins, but they're connecting in through mobile ordering. They're connecting with, smart devices. They're getting near field communications, and geofencing. I mean, it's really a lot broader than it used to be, because everybody's connected in, right?
For that matter, right? As you probably might have heard, almost there was a 5% increase in customer retention just because they use the loyalty programs that today's restaurants use. So as you can see, technology has just morphed out of just not just connectivity, but also making sure that there is a touch point. Every customer touch point is managed by, again, I've come up with this word called frictionless experience. That's the goal for all of these industries.
So not to throw us off a lot. So let me just make sure I got this. So it was people, and then the second one
is process.
Process, and then the technology last, because in reality, technology is the enabler. But if we don't have the people, and then how we use that technology is your process in there, and then the technology is really last in there. Because also we find, even as you have 800 broadband connections, but I wonder how many pieces of equipment on the customer side are you connecting, or are you protecting, or are you dealing with?
That is correct. So for instance, many restaurants today have, all of these IoT devices, kitchen timers, everything is connected. Right now, it's not just POS devices anymore that's connected to a router or switch. You have digital menu boards. When you drive through, you also have voice activated devices. So it's not just network connection or credit card traffic anymore. It's voice, it's digital media, it's Wi-Fi. You have somebody coming in. Plus, as you stated earlier, Rob, all these loyalty apps that are also connected through the customer's mobile device. So you have to manage all of that to create that experience.
Well, it is about the connections. And that word digital is sort of a interesting word, because over time, we've seen people going from the chief information officer to the chief technology officer, and today the chief digital officer, which could be a separate function, or actually it could in fact encompass what used to be the CIO or the CTO. It's the chief digital officer, because as you're pointing out, everything is connected and everything is digital.
And Rob, if you look at the industry, there's actually a separate position, because the chief digital officer is now focused on any type of connectivity experience, and then they turn and partner with the CTO or the CIO to go ahead and implement that. So they're talking go ahead.
Well, no, I was just thinking about that. So I've seen a number of companies. I've been around for a few years as well, and I've seen the transformation within companies. Sometimes at one point it all came under one person, and then they split up the jobs. And then at one point I saw some of the QSR people, companies like McDonald's, 15 years ago, having a chief, CIO at one point who was in charge of infrastructure. And then you had a chief operations officer, or CTO, which was all the technology. And then you had somebody who actually dealt with, the customer being the operators, operation store technology, and you split it out, in there. I think that's sort of to your point, but yet everything is digital at the end and comes together.
For sure. So, and the other portion, to take us back to the people, processes, and technology, for instance, on our one of our key programs is called a concierge program. So, which is where you have the franchisee base that's very busy trying to get to their customers, whether it's a quick service restaurant or a retail gas station. So what is key is for making sure that their focus is on their business, and so the technology firms deploy some processes that makes it easy to transition, and making sure that their restaurants are up and running on the network, all their applications are working, and that the installation, this day two support, and every touch point that their customer has is seamless. So,
well, is the idea of a
process,
concierge a single point of contact, and
the
then you go
concierge
ahead and
is that single
triage and
point.
send it out?
That is correct. That's concierge then can manage everything for that customer so that they can focus on their business.
Well, I think a lot of companies talk about the people and the process, but we're in the hospitality business. We're in a service business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself, and you've actually just brought up franchisees, but that in itself creates a lot of challenges for us.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a concierge has to, in fact, understand the customer and who's calling and where they're coming from and how they're using things.
Mm-hmm.
A number of years ago, if you just used a script, that wasn't going to work. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you actually create that relationship with the customer where they feel that they're calling one of their own, or the person they're talking to actually understands their business?
And Rob, that's a great question, because it's extremely important, as you said, to understand the customer's operation. So one of the key aspects that I would definitely recommend is, as the customer becomes aware of you, educate them on the processes of how you run your business or how you interact with them, and then talk to them and understand how are your operations. So as part of our onboarding process, for instance, for example, we work with let's say quick service restaurant and say, hey, when can we call to make sure your network connectivity is okay? So are there do not call hours? Are there times when you're taking inventory when you do not want to be bothered? So creating that not only lets you understand the operation, but also helps you understand, build that partnership with them. It's more of a partnership than me being a vendor. That's very, very critical.
And you know what? That's the same way that the food deliveries go. You don't deliver during certain hours, right? But on the other hand, because you're monitoring the network and you're taking a look at things, and because so many applications across the board are actually not residing on premise and they're actually off premise and in the cloud, when they lose that connectivity, you are down. They can't wait. So how do you prioritize? Because SLAs just went out the window because you're not operating. So service level agreements went out the window. But how do you manage that?
So in terms of, first of all, creating a high availability environment is very, very critical for the customer. So we partner with them, we help them design their network, and then we also provide several layers of service. We provide them services where we watch their network for them. So basically, we have technology that automatically monitors it, and let's say a backup goes down, we can work with them and say, hey, by the way, we noticed something, your backup is down. Let's bring you back up, because you do not want, as you said earlier, a hard down situation. So there are services that we can provide them, and also, both automated, we can send them a notification to say, hey, by the way, you're running single threaded at this location, which means you're at the risk of a hard down situation.
Does it go more than that, though, down to the equipment level where you're also monitoring the health and life of the equipment?
Absolutely.
For failure?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we now also deploy Power Edge devices that can automatically reboot something for them, if so that we can bring back a modem that's gone down for some reason, that somebody knocked it off, or due to a power surge, things like that as well.
So do you think that, it sounds sort of complicated to me with as many connected things as there are, but how do you keep it for being simple for the actual operator? Because the operator's not a computer person. And, so how do you keep it simple for them? Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to, deliver to their customers, and they need to be able to diagnose, take care of things, or maybe it just needs to be seamless, so they shouldn't think about it.
And I use that word in terms of a seamless customer experience. Have them focus on their customers, while you as a provider focus on the connectivity, the network, the applications that are connected to that. So that is the constant goal that we always have in order for us to be able to maintain it. So we are watching the network. We are also leveraging AI, right? Because we're collecting all this data, we are able to now also predict, hey, by the way, we see a digital signature to say that this location is probably not performing optimally. Let's go ahead and fix it proactively. That proactive review of each of those locations makes it so much easier back to the people, right? Making so that the employee at that particular employee at that restaurant or that employee at the at the gas station is focused on serving their customer while we're taking care of the network.
And they shouldn't be thinking about the technology. So you had to mention the word AI, but let's just do this. Let's just take a break for a moment, and then let's talk about some real case examples, from both your experience and the things that you've seen in other industries and things. So we'll come back in just a minute.
With the rapid expansion of technology in the food and beverage industries, finding the right supplier can become overwhelming and complicated. To simplify this process, the IFBTA created Exchange. Exchange is a powerful search tool where users can easily narrow down their technology search and refine results by application type, geography served, department, and more. Browse resources and learn more about the industry's technology suppliers at exchange.ifbta.org. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. I'm with Sindhu Rajan, who's the Vice President of Enterprise Systems and Services Delivery for Hughes Network Systems. And we were having a conversation before the break just about the approach of people, process, and then technology. We had a conversation about how things work in this world, and I learned something new, 800 connection points or high-speed access to get out there in the journey. And we learned about how your approach to the customer is, and the concept actually of a concierge, but really getting to know the customer. So I'd like to just shift a little bit. So we ended with talking about AI in there, and I guess it's hard to have any conversation without it. But we also talked about seamless service. And so you really want the services to be seamless for the operator who's operating, as you said, a gas station, a QSR restaurant, a hotel. So how does AI actually play into that, perhaps to provide them or you actionable information or insights, that can actually manage better without actually telling them that AI is behind it?
So from the network side, so let me focus on what's happening at the customer location first. We are constantly watching and collecting data to make sure that these location is performing optimally. If it isn't, then we are working with our customers to be able to proactively, or their IT help desk to proactively recover it and make sure that there is very little impact to that end location. So that is something that we're doing. Then if you turn it around internally within the organization, because we are in the technology space, when somebody calls us, we have customers that can call us directly if there is an issue, or we leave a voicemail and they want to call back and say, hey, could you help me with troubleshooting this? In that situation, we've been able to use Gen AI, listen to the calls, making sure that our support personnel are not using technical terms, things like that, and making that experience extremely smooth for the person that's calling. And they shouldn't realize they're calling into a high technology support center. Instead, they're talking to somebody to say, hey, I just need my digital menu board fixed. Or I see this, I see that my credit card transactions are not going through. You left me a voice message about a particular connectivity issue. Could you help me solve it?
Are you also using the Gen AI to, and I know this is going to be like counter to what we were talking about here is the direct customer connect and customer service. But if somebody chooses to go ahead and type in a service ticket, or they have a question, maybe it's not urgent, are you actually using things like Gen AI to go ahead and respond back to them?
Space. Oh, not in this space. What we're using is after the conversation has happened, looking at, at the call itself and trying to figure out where the communication gaps are. And so that when the next call comes in, we are able to smoothen that out. So say, for instance, the support personnel was using some complex technology language in their troubleshooting. We try to take that out of it in the future. One of the things that we really pride on is continuing to make that human contact. So I stand by my earlier statement. The people always matter first, and then it is the process and then the technology.
But we do see a lot of companies, especially with customer service and customer support, even in taking hotel reservations or virtual, starting to head that way. And it's sort of driving people crazy until we get to the point where, the culture, where the background, the voice of the customer is really heard, which is hard to do today. However, I do get it, that you can use that to analyze the calls and things that you're getting and actually do a quicker turnaround. Because I remember how long it would take for reporting in the old days to go ahead and
Right.
look at trends. You
Correct.
actually could note a trend probably within a few hours if it's occurring a lot.
Absolutely. And previously as well, our network management systems have been really great in identifying trends. But along with Gen AI, we are now able to use the power of the voice of what the users are calling about, so that the response can be tailored when and trained. Our employees can be trained better in their responses as well.
And you really do have, it's sort of a cyclical process. You need to continue to update, to train, because the technologies, even the customers are using, can be put in place a lot quicker than they used to be,
For sure.
especially when you're connecting things behind the scenes, we can really mess you up if you're not thinking about it. So you have to identify that. You work in a lot of industries. Are there specific industry focus areas that you and your team are working with?
Across all segments. In fact, it's whether it's large enterprise or in the franchisee space, we do know that they don't have the help of a large IT help desk. In that case, we provide several other support models, such as the concierge program I talked to you about. We also provide things like implementation support. So, for instance, we're managing a huge rollout. We have a team that actually watches that huge rollout. At the end of the day, communicate. Again, it's the matter of putting those processes in place so that the impact is pretty limited when there is a transition of network or a transition of technology that is happening.
Is the technology, though, at the end of the day, I know people don't think about this, and I learned this in the last year, that kitchen equipment and a connected environment, right? The second that it is digital, meaning it has a screen on it, it is communicating. Somebody told me the simple way to understand if a fryer or an oven or something. So they're all part of the connected, the connected store, the connected environment, because really everything is connected. Are you also serving to diagnose and help resolve issues that come across all of the connected devices? At least the triage?
So based on our customers' contract with us. Certain customers just want us to manage the network. Certain customers want us to manage the back office equipment and everything else that's connected to it, any IoT devices. So we have several models that would allow for that based on the level of IT skills they have, right? So, but we have the capability to doing just standard support in terms of technology. We have the ability to do proactive support, which means we do it all for the customer, and then the last piece is beyond that to
well,
all
people
of
don't want to be in the technology business. They're in the service business. But do you find, you've mentioned franchisees a couple of times here, do you find that the franchisees no longer have to be mandated to for levels of support, that they actually understand and get it, that they need to have the security, they need to have network management, that they need to have all these pieces? Do you think they get it today?
I think the brands do somewhat of a good job, but the franchisees are also, have a lot of choices right now. So it helps to partner with a good provider that can give them a, bias-free recommendation on, what is available and what is good, especially within the areas of security and now that and other connectivity enhancements.
Well, it is a big thing. So it's a big industry. And when you think about it, hospitality, food service, retail, if you actually broke that down, I could come up with probably 50 or 60 different segments of it, from cruise ships to convenience stores to grocery to, and by the way, food service cuts across all of them because everybody's got to eat. So you got it in almost all of those different things. Are there some specific learnings or use case scenarios that you've come up with, not in our industry, but maybe another industry that you believe that we should be learning from?
So I certainly think, in terms of, we work with a lot of the oil and gas industry, and so with that, one of the key areas that and the retail industry, well, one of the key things that we've noticed is it's not, service is not always standard in terms of, day to day. Sometimes you may have a high volume time. So, for instance, in the retail industry, starting nowadays, Thanksgiving starts, I think, in August. Thanksgiving sales starts in August. So trying to plan for that is very, very key.
We're not even past Halloween, and people are sitting there selling Christmas stuff right now.
Exactly. So, in order to plan for seasons and the increase in sales, it might be really, really good for you for the hospitality industry to also understand that and see how can you tailor your service accordingly, right? It does not necessarily mean overtaxing an already busy employee base, but also trying to see how can we leverage some of the technology. We actually. I would recommend that with other companies as well. We actually work with our customers, regardless of the industry, and talk to them about how can we tailor and create a different level of service during, for instance, like Valentine's Day. We've got customers that sell a lot more during Valentine's Day.
Absolutely.
Things like that.
Does that mean that your customers give you a seat at the table, that you're really part of their groups? Because a lot of these groups have technology advisory boards, or they have an executive group in it. I mean, are you developing the relationship that's so close that you actually have that seat at the table with the customer?
For sure. So many of our colleagues and employees actually go to conferences, right? So that they can actually talk to the others in the.
Yes, I talk to Tim Tang at almost every conference that I go to.
Yes.
And he's always the first one with a question or a comment.
Correct.
And we've had him on TechBytes before. He's great. But yes, you're
yeah.
out
I mean,
there.
if folks like such as Tim Tang not only are there to ask questions, but what they bring back is for my organization to be able to say, here is what we are hearing in the industry, whether it's hospitality or retail, and here are the pain points, which allows me to kind of fine tune and tailor my service delivery organization as well, because when people reach out to my team when things are not going well or expect me to keep their experience really, really, problem free. So I'm always working with Tim Tang and Carl Adler and the teams just to make sure that we are, we have a ear to the ground there.
Well, you have to have the feet on the street that are able to do that.
Absolutely.
And you have to be in with not only with the industry, but you got to be in with your customers to do that. Now, some of your customers are international customers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about this two ways. You got a lot of international companies that come this way, and our companies are going that way. And then they have international customers who are actually buying their services. So how do you see international playing into all this?
So we have a few oil and gas companies that are international, and some quick service restaurants as well. And primarily, we do have our sister organizations that we work with in order to make sure that the service is seamless as well. And we often meet to make sure some of the best practices we have here we can deploy with our international customers as well. And then on top of that, we try to provide a one-page window kind of experience for them. So, for instance, if they're looking at, we have a oil and gas company that has services in Indonesia, and whether their network is operating in Indonesia or here, we try to provide them a single snapshot.
That's
so
right.
they have a one-place view to go ahead and look at their network or the performance of our services for them.
Well, by the way, you started the conversation today with talking about loyalty and how it had increased to 5%, I believe you said, in the last few years. When you think about it, loyalty or loyalty cards or gift card payments are global, and people expect them to work no matter where they go, and they get rather annoyed if they can't. So there's an application that even if the menus are different, even if the POS is different, even if the digital, all the things are different, they do expect to get that seamless experience as a customer.
Absolutely.
So as we think about this, across the board, uh, there are a lot of different things that are going on, a lot of parts and pieces that one has to put together. But we focused on the people for sure. I just want to make sure that we're clear that your middle was process. And what is it that people are not necessarily organized. This is not necessarily their main business. Yet we've learned that technology people are a lot of times they're they're the project management office, the PMO, because they have processes when you're putting together applications. So what are the processes that you would bring to the table that really help the customers out that they're not experts in it? So that's a value add.
So even when we go as far as when you're engaging with the customer, even before they become our customer, right? Actually, our sales team brings us to the table, and we walk through the entire service delivery process and engagement. While we're doing that, we also take it a point to understand their customer's journey, so that then we can overlay our service delivery processes with their customer journey, so that whether it starts from the awareness to the buy to the onboarding to the use and then the support, we are in lockstep with our customers. And as part of that, we also put together very clear support boundaries, very clear customer touch points. All of that is added and stitched into it, so that when the customer is onboarded with us, the operations is streamlined.
What do you do when they don't follow the process?
Oh, we actually, I was going to say, as a follow on, we definitely meet with them. So, and some customers we actually meet on a weekly basis, some on a bi-weekly basis, and then there's always an operational cadence and touch point and review and correction that we walk through. If they don't follow a particular process, we definitely talk to them to say, if you do this, here's the advantage of, and here is how much it actually saves you in terms of cost. While we follow through with this, everything works well with numbers.
There's the ongoing process of how you provide support and that process of how you resolve problems and things. Coming from a restaurant background myself, one knows that the chef, will always be told they should go ahead and they want to control their food costs and their supply chain. And so they put an automated system in. But what does the chef not want to do? Actually put down their recipes, into a system, because they want creativity, right?
Right.
So when a customer is thinking about implementing new technologies, there's a process there too, because you need to make sure it works. How do you take them through the journey of enhancing and growing and moving forward?
So our network engineering team, we have several teams. Even after we onboard, we're constantly working with them to understand what their journey is. So, for instance, we have many customers who are upgrading their POS. There's a restaurant industry customer that's upgrading the POS. So our team works with them and talks about, hey, if you do this, here are your bandwidth requirements. We're constantly evaluating the bandwidth requirements across all of our customers, so that they're not surprised, hey, they've added all of these extra applications and expect the locations to perform. So that kind of a proactive approach and review of that customer's technology growth or their customers' experience is very key for us to be able to stay in sync with their network needs.
Well, I think you've taken us, through the journey. By the way, I would point out that your personal journey mirrors a lot the journey that you would take a customer through as well. Even as you went ahead and grew your career, starting at one place, supporting the operational systems, and now you're actually supporting those customers and all their different systems. I see that as well. So just sort of thinking about process, and I can tell you're a very process person because over your shoulder are all these medals up there. And I know that nobody has so many medals for probably doing certain types of races unless you are focused and you have a process. I bet that you probably know your steps down to the watch and you've got this all figured out.
Yes, that's always used as it's a fun thing to do while you're, a lot of good ideas come when you're running through, trails and the CNO Canal and everything else, for sure.
But do you know all your stats? I mean, do you
Oh,
actually know when
absolutely.
you're running? You
Absolutely.
must know it all, right?
Absolutely. You always end on a round number, making sure that you take, if you're running 6.2 miles, it's 6.2 miles exactly, or a 26.2, all of that for sure. Yes.
You have to know all those different pieces.
True.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for joining us today. You've taken us on a digital journey today. And again, I would point out, people, process, technology. And in your world, you actually manage and hold it together, but you work with a lot of teams and you work with the customers. And I think that your approach, of being a part of the team, the customer team, but bringing all that experience from all these other industries, I think makes a big difference. So, I want to thank you for sharing that with us today, and for the work that Hughes Network Systems is doing in the industry to provide managed services, which are a much broader definition in digital transformation than they probably were when you started.
Thank you, Robin. It was a pleasure speaking with you as well.
So it's been a pleasure to have Sindhu Rajan, the Vice President of Enterprise Systems and Service Delivery from Hughes Network Systems, with us today and sharing her digital transformation journey and how she's helping to bring that to the customer base as well. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of food service, hospitality, and retail technology, all put together. We provide thought leadership as your single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange and all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share in conversations like the one we're having today. So thank you for joining us on this episode of TechBytes powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.